I'm really excited about this conversation today because this is something that I think so many of us are looking for. How is the best way to actually make a tangible leap in consciousness to really shift something in our lives? And I'm kind of reminded of that expression. And I know the true expression, I think they use the word stupidity, but I don't want to I don't want to use that. I want to say, let's say crazy, the definition of craziness is to do the same thing over and over and expect different results. And I think for myself, I was in that place for a long time. And it wasn't until I finally realized I need to get outside of this box that I'm in. It wasn't just a case of I need to think outside the box. I needed to actually get outside the box. And once I finally did that, then I found the answers that I was seeking. And I mean, fair enough, they were the initial answers right then. And then the journey has just continued. But that was the thing that finally gave me that big shift instead of kind of just pushing on and making small shifts but still being very much in my own little world. So today's guest is Eric Bigger. He is a spiritual fitness expert and thought leader. I've had him on the show before. I've invited him back because I just absolutely love everything that Eric says. We have amazing conversations. And he says to me, Sia, you need to record a podcast episode about that. And I'm like, Eric, I've got to get you on back on my show. So we're sitting down and doing it. And we are talking about this topic today because Eric has just had his first really big experience in going totally outside the box and hearing his reflections of the things he's taken away from this, of the way that it's elevated his timeline and how he's anchoring that has been so fascinating that I'm like, okay, the listeners need to hear this. So, Eric, thanks so much for coming and sharing with us today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm back on the podcast.
Before we get into the bigger stuff, I want to start with there was a slightly smaller experience you had that kind of kicked off the ball rolling. And again, it was something that was outside of the ordinary. It came about in a funny way. Eric and I had just met online of all things. I'd been a guest on his podcast, and we found out that he was living in LA. I was about to go to LA, and I knew I wanted to go to Joshua Tree, which is this incredible sacred site, national park, but it's about 3 to 4 hours outside of Los Angeles. And being Australian, I was absolutely terrified of driving on the wrong side of the road and trying to do that in LA of all places. So I said to Eric, you know what? Let's get together. Let's go on an adventure. We'll go out there. We'll sit with cacao ceremony. And this was kind of the first time that you'd ever done anything like this, Eric. And I remember when we weren't even in the gates yet. We were pulling up. We were sitting in that queue to go in. And I looked over to you and you were tearing up and you said to me, Sia, my ancestors are talking to me. They're saying to me, what took you so long? We've been waiting for you. And I mean, this was before we'd even got inside the gate. And it was just a phenomenal day. So I just want to ask you to share a bit about what was that experience for you and what did that open up for you?
I think the first thing that comes to mind that I think people who don't know from the work you do, you set the intentions and you put the rainbow pyramid around us before we traveled 2.5, 3 hours, right? And so when you first did it, I was like, okay, cool, this is different, right? Stepping outside of the box. And as we got closer, and then you started saying things like, they're waiting for us. I can hear them, they're talking to me. And then I don't know what happened when we got like right to the gate. I felt what you were saying. It like came through me. And I just got this nudge. Like, I've been to LA 13 years and they've been waiting for me this entire time. And I just was like, wow, I got emotional because it was like so real in that moment that I felt what you were calling in and what was happening. And then it felt beautiful. It felt like this is where I belong on my journey, because prior to that, it was a lot of contrast and a lot of challenges that didn't make sense, but that made sense, right? Where I didn't have to question because my vessel, my body felt what I was feeling. And It was amazing. It was just like, okay, this is a prerequisite for what's about to go down. This is a starter. This is a Kickstarter of the activation that I don't even know I'm about to experience. So it kind of like grounded me in like safetyness, right? And I just felt good. I
Yeah, I
felt at
really.
home. I felt at home.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you say that because there's a section in my new book where it talks about we feel truth because no matter what conditioning we might have gone through, no matter what trauma, no matter what, how many lives we've had or whatever, at that core essence, we still remember. And so when we have those moments, we feel it in a way that we can't explain. It kind of like it transcends all logic, all reason, anything we've experienced before. And I love that you said that. You could just feel that. And I know once we were in the actual sacred sites and we were literally just going where we were guided. We didn't have a plan. We were like, let's follow the energy. And we had our cacao ceremony and that was really profound. And I remember trust was a big thing that came up for you. But then we went for one last sort of little excursion. I felt we were meant to go to this vortex where the two deserts met. And we had no idea it was going to be such a long drive. And we were getting sort of low on petrol. And it was getting late in the day. And you were so amazing because I kept looking at you and I thought any moment now he's going to say, we have to turn around because I could see you were tired, but you just kept going. And when we got out, I want you to share a little bit about that experience because we had a beautiful animal messenger come in and then you had an incredible experience there.
Joshua Tree is a sacred site. One with Sia was amazing. It was magic and miracles. I was so jubilant, so happy. And I'm thinking, that's it, right? Like, we're good. And she's like, Eric, you might not want to hear this. I think we have to go to the Mojave Desert. We have to go to two deserts to meet. And I'm like, okay, where is it? So I'm thinking it's not as far. And man, I guess we'll get into it later in the discussion about the complaining part. And I want to say this to people who are listening. And I think this is where we stop our remembrance coming fully in on the rainbow race, which is really evolving. When we complain and we get tired and we don't want to go the extra mile, that's what a blessing is. That's what a miracle is. So because I have information I'm aware, I didn't really want to drive anymore, right? He's like, we got to do this. So I'm thinking, we're like 20 minutes in. I'm thinking, like, where is this place at? And it's like, we got to keep going. And I was just like, but anyway, we get there. I understand it's just greater than me. It's bigger than me. If I'm complaining and feeling like this, there's something for me that I need to learn or even for receive that I can't see. So people know that when you don't want to do something, but it's still good for you. So we get there, we get out. What is the plant or the tobacco you give?
Mapacho.
So he was like, okay, now set your intention, speak to your ancestors, and ask them what do they want you to receive. Like, okay. So I do that, and I'm listening, and the thing that comes up is love, power. So I'm like, okay. And then after you did something. I think you was blowing what's the name? I keep getting the name.
Mapacho.
Yeah, you were blowing, so I think you blew on my throat chakra, my third eye, and then the back of my third eye. And it was like I just got all these visions. And it was like I was getting like a crown on my head. I'm like, okay. And then as soon as I opened my eyes, I swear it was like a hummingbird that just flew like and it left. I'm like, what does this mean? And at the time, you didn't give me the information. I didn't have the awareness. It was just so quick. I felt like you and I was in the end of a movie, and and it's like the credits were coming down the screen. We were walking back to the car together, getting in, driving off. Like that's it, you did it, and it was such a magical experience that I will always remember in that moment visually. And that's what kind of like set off just my activation of get my crown. But I didn't know what it meant until you kind of elaborate and to explain more.
Yeah, I love that. And that moment with the hummingbird, like it didn't just come in, it came in and it hovered at this like kind of like cactus right in front of you. I mean, it was directly in front of you. So it was so obviously meant for you. And it was at the cactus, which I like, you know, we'll share what that means later. And then it was gone. And we didn't see any other birds. I mean, it wasn't just we didn't see any other hummingbirds. We didn't see any other birds. Like it was just this incredible divine messenger. So the thing that I originally wasn't going to share with listeners, but I have decided we need to, because it's so just an intrinsic part of the magic and the unfolding when we follow I call it following the breadcrumbs, you know. So this is this is, you know, this whole thing with you agreeing to go on this, you know, big adventure. It was a lot of driving for you that day, you know, big adventure with me, and then trusting me to go that extra mile with the pilgrimage to that particular site that I could feel was the vortex. And so what had actually happened a bit earlier in the day, I had received a message just while you were connected in, and we were in some quiet time connected in with the land. I got a message that I was meant to offer you a place in the Peru retreat. Now, I think at that time the Peru retreat was full, but I had an extra spot that I had paid for because a year earlier when I had planned it, I had originally thought I would bring along a support facilitator person, but I don't need them for the Peru retreats because I'm just so anchored in this land, and also the tour guide I work with is so connected and everything. And so I had decided, no, I'm not going to use that. But at no point did I think I would give that spot away. It was just like, okay, that's just something I'm not going to need. So I got this message and I kind of thought, yeah, I don't know about that, you know, because we'd only just met. So I just kind of like put it out of my mind. And then I think it was 20 minutes. I mean, it may not have even been, actually, it wasn't. It was like 5 minutes later, you turned around and you said to me, you know what? I've got to get to Peru. I can feel I've got to get to Peru. And I remember just thinking, that's really weird. You would say that right then. And then anyway, after such a massive day, and we got stuck in traffic on the way back and had an impromptu dance party in the car, and I went to bed, and by the next morning I'd completely forgotten about it. And I got a message from my Peruvian tour guide, but it triggered the memory. And I thought, oh, that's right. I got that message about Eric yesterday. And I thought, this is crazy. You can't just invite someone to join a Peru like 6 weeks, join a retreat 6 weeks out and this and that. And I thought, you know what, come into cacao ceremony, ask if this is the guidance. And it was. And by that time, I'd spent enough time with you to know, yeah, I mean, you know, on a soul level, this guy is going to fit beautifully with the group. He's the right frequency and everything. So I did it. I sent you the message and I said, this is going to sound a little bit crazy, but do you want a free spot in the Peru retreat? And I just want to say to the listeners, please do not hit me up for free spots in my retreats. They do not exist. This is the first time I've ever done it. I don't think it'll ever happen again. It was a divinely woven thing. And then you like just said yes. And you invested in yourself because you had to take the time off work. You had to buy the flights and everything. But it was like this call to go way outside of anything you'd experienced. You know, it was so far outside of that box, as we're saying. And it's been such a life-changing experience for you that I want to dive deeper into some of the things that have awakened in you, the realizations, the way it's changing your timeline and everything. But before we get into the detail, like on an overall perspective, how would you say going to Peru and going to a place, you know, like that, that's so different, and sitting in ceremony at that level and having these experiences that were so far out of your realm of normal and day-to-day and previous experiences, how has that changed you?
I mean, it's changed me a lot. And before I get into that, I want to speak on like, you know, when we get called to do things, because I didn't know you had that intuition or that hit, or I didn't know. Like when we were in the journey, in Cacao and Josh retreat, my spirit kept saying Peru, Peru, Peru. I'm like, okay, Peru. So when I was saying that and it was coming to myself, I was like, I must have some type of familiarity or some remembrance there. Something there feels like not home, but feels like a cousin. Like I'm supposed to be in Peru for whatever reason. Now, I think what happened was when you sent the message the next day. First of all, I didn't even know you did retreats all over the world. Like I wasn't even invested in, I just was like, oh, you're coming to LA. You wanted to kind of feel the land. You wanted to move here. You're willing to do the cacao ceremony for my birthday. I was open. I was honored because I knew my problem in life is receiving. So fast forward to you giving me an offering. I know from past experiences, it's like 8 years ago, and when I got a call to go on a big TV show. I didn't know anything about it. I don't think I was ready, but I was open, right? And I knew I had to say yes, even if I wasn't. The circumstances in my life didn't make sense. For this was in March when I got the message to come to Peru from you, and the retreat was in May. I just knew I had to say yes. It was bigger than me. And so by me saying that, it felt like, oh, I'm about to go on a magical experience and it's going to change my life. Because I know nothing comes in your life like that for no reason. Like no opportunities just don't like, you want to go? So I knew there was something greater at play. And so going, the great thing about it is the old me would question everything. I would try to figure out. I would ask so many questions. I was just like, you know what? I'm going here with full trust, full surrender, and just allowing and just I'm there to do something I've never done in my life. Because to be honest, I don't think I shared this with you, but when I saw the option to sit with Wachuma, St. Pedro, I was like, then I was thinking like, there's no way in the world I'm going all the way to Peru and I'm not going to try the medicine. It's no way. It's like, come on, bro. It's like, really? You gonna go all the way there and not even try? So I went. The first 2 days were incredulous, incredible. But here's the thing. I'm afraid of heights. I do not love hiking at all. I enjoy it. I don't love it. So the first day was the Inca Trail, 7 hours. It was great. It was warm. It was nice. And I was like, oh, I'm up high. Wow. Like, what's going on? I think what happened was at the end, it started to rain and it was raining bad. I had my rain jacket on, I had my hat, and I was good. But it was like to a point like, bro, like, really? Like, this is me talking to myself. Is this really happening? And that's when the Western way of thinking and complaining came in because, like, I just want this to be over. Like, I want to well, make a long story short, the trip to Peru has really changed my life in a way. I just have new awareness about just nature, connecting to the lands, connecting to Asagante, climbing Machu Picchu, speaking to coca leaves and setting intentions and giving offerings to Pachamama, hugging, right? Like I'm learning how to hug, right? On the left side. And just being present without trying to be present, if that makes sense, and just collecting all the energy from the universe and just being thankful for like little things we do without thinking. Like we woke up, right? And granted, gratitude's like, oh, gratitude. It sounds cheesy, but Peru didn't teach me how to feel gratitude. It taught me how to receive gratitude. And that's what I got out of that. I know how to receive gratitude now. And it feels amazing because life is simple when you get this medicine, especially through how you set up the retreat, you, Aoki, everybody that was there. I felt like a soul family. There was moments where I cried because I was like, this is what I wanted my entire life. It's people I can trust without questioning. And I don't seem weird or different. I just seem a part of the group because we're all in this space together, loving and being present. So it was great.
One of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because I see so many reflections in your journey as in my early journey. So, I was like you. I was already working in some capacity, definitely not at the level that I am now, but I was working in kind of a healing, thought leader kind of capacity before I really connected in with Peru. And I was meditating, I had my own practices and everything, but it wasn't until as we say, you get out of your day to day, you get out of your box, that I realized, oh my gosh, there's a level beyond anything I could have imagined of connection. And it was actually through that experience of connection and sacredness, and I would say remembering, that I realized how disconnected we are in Western society. Often, even when we're trying to live in a connected way, there are so many things that we don't recognize, like you say, the complaining and things like that come in. And complaining is second nature to us in Western societies because it's about comfort. Everything is about the comfort zone. Everything is about comfort. When it's cold, we put on heating. When it's hot, we put on air conditioning. We expect our food to come at a certain time. And, there's a lot of expectations of how the world should run and this, that, the other. And you get to a place like Peru where the elements are just going to do what they're going to do. And the hikes, I say this to people, it's not about your level of fitness. I've had people who are super fit and cardio fit really struggle on the hikes. And then people who are much older and not in great fitness breeze along because the land is teaching you. It will literally adjust the difficulty in terms of how you feel, how steep it is, or how you feel the altitude based on what you need. And Peru taught me, it really broke me down. It broke down my ego. It broke down a lot of my Western conditioning. And I've learned since then, I didn't think that I complained a lot because Australians are known as being very easygoing, and I am an easygoing Australian. But even Australians complain compared to the way that these people are. And it was Alki who gave me guidance on that. And he was pretty strict with me on that as well, because he was like, Sia, you're meant to approach these lands as a local. You can't approach these as a tourist. And he said, I'm going to teach you the Peruvian way. And he was strict, if he explained to me about respect for the land and about the way that the land amplifies our thoughts. And so when we're on these sacred lands and these sacred portals, we don't go into that negativity. We don't go into that complaining. We don't go into that disconnection and that lack of gratitude. And it changed everything for me, because once we let go of that, we let go of trying to control our surroundings and make everything a certain way, make everything what we perceive to be easy, which is really just a judgment, right? We make an assessment of what we consider easy versus hard. And when we actually then start to truly connect, so we come out of the disconnection, we come into actual connection, we come out of the discontent and we come into gratitude, and we come out of that fragmentation and we come into presence, all of a sudden life gets so much easier, because the things that would previously annoy us or frustrate us, they don't even register anymore, because we're just so in flow and we're not caught up in time and where we're supposed to be and this and that. We're just present and we're flowing. And this is where the magic happens, when we come out of that Western fragmentation and disconnection. So I love that you've brought that up, because that was massive for me on my journey. And I didn't realize how disconnected we are in the modern world until you come to a place like this, where you literally just have to let go of that stuff, because the land is going to do what it's going to do. The traffic is going to do what it's going to do, because there's this whole Peruvian way. You can plan things as much as you want, but the way of life here is you have to flow with it. And it was a beautiful teacher. So I love that you've brought that up, because that shifts a lot. And I don't think we can truly grasp that at that level from within the Western society, because we don't actually fully see it until we depart from that and we come out of that box and we experience another way and we witness another way with other people. One of the things I want to touch on is the communication with the land. I know you had said to me, Sia, I get it now. I get it.
You would say the term or the phrase so much. I'm like, what is she talking about? Like, she's like, these mountains and this land is medicine. I'm like, like, okay, medicine. What is medicine? And so what I was getting as I was out there was that it is medicine. It was healing for my soul, those hikes, and nature in the mountains, just in all, is so open to hear you. It's so open to receiving whatever you want to give it. If you just sit and be present and just listen to the listening, you will learn so much about the land. uh I look at leaves different, I look at birds different, I look at the sun different, I look at the concrete there, I look at everything different now, because when I got back, I actually went to a park in Beverly Hills and did like some breath work, and I had my eyes closed and I opened my eyes and I literally saw a portal. I was like, wow. But I always go to this park. I've been going to this park for 4 or 5 years, but it's just like I saw, like, oh, that's a portal right there. I was like, oh, I need to come, because like my spirit was like, go here and do the breath because the sun was out, and I was sitting on a stoop, and then I was like, this is a portal, but I wouldn't have got that, understanding or awareness if I wasn't in Peru, connecting with Alsangate and Machu Picchu and all of the things out there. It really amplified my intangible gifts, the gifts you can't see. Um, and I do want to speak on a rainbow race. About a few days ago, I don't know what called me to pray to see the rainbow race when I was in the shower. But before I was going to see a client, I was just praying and saying, allow the rainbow race to show up, as most transparent as it can for my client. I don't know the exact prayer, but I wasn't attached to it. Boom. I get to my client house. He got his sprinklers on in his garden, and I see a rainbow. I'm like, yeah, oh, go on. Like, okay. But it reminded me like, oh, I prayed about this. So I'm taking it in, I got my phone. I was just like, I got to record this. But he's more mechanical, logical. What are you talking about? He didn't say that, but I know him. So I'm just amazed. I'm like, and I think I sent you a message. And I'm like, that's a fucking rainbow. Like, what's going on? Like, I'm just happy. Boom. Okay, cool. I'm training, I'm coaching. He uses the bathroom. And he said, you're not gonna believe what I'm witnessing. I'm like, what's up? It's a rainbow in the corner of his shower in his bathroom. So his gym is in his guest house. And he has like a little window in there. There's a shower, there's a sink, there's a toilet, and it's a rainbow in the corner. And from that moment, I said, bingo, that's the magic. Now I know he has to believe the spiritual stuff that I've been telling him for years. And by the way, at the end of this session, I pulled 3 leaves from his garden and we set intentions and he planted them in his garden. And I'm like, I'm in this movie, in this scene. I'm like, is this really happening? Like, he's trusting me so much. He doesn't do this. And I was like, hey, that's Peru. That's the rainbow race. Thank you. So I share that to say that's how much of Peru has integrated in my vessel since coming back and really understanding the powers that got activated while I was there. And it's a real thing. It's not just something we talk about, it's something we experience and changes our life. And we have a spiritual evolution of it all.
This blows my mind because this is the ripples that goes out,
Yeah.
right? And I would say, yes, I mean, Peru is incredible, but I see this, I mean, like you said, when we met, you didn't know I ran global retreats, but
Yeah.
I run retreats in sacred sites in Peru, in Uluru and Katajuta in Australia, and other, powerhouse places in Australia and in South Africa. And so I see this from all of the retreats. People go away completely transformed, and what I believe it is that sacredness, that remembering, like we said at the beginning, we feel it and it exists inside us. And so all it takes is getting out of that box, getting out of our day-to-day, getting out of our realm of reference that we've grown up with, having this experience where we really awaken that, what I would call sacred co-creation. I mean, my latest book is called The Rainbow Tablets, Abundance and Sacred Co-creation. It's all about how when we live in our true abundance consciousness, we are unifying earth and stars within ourselves. We are connecting with the land in this way. And we are also connecting with the star realms in this way. So everything you've just said, about you see the leaves differently, the birds, the mountains, you're now getting these cosmic messages. You ask the rainbow race to show up and they do. I can't tell you how, I mean, I can guarantee probably 50 or more % of the listeners are giggling at the moment, thinking of a bunch of their own stories of this, because I hear it all the time from complete strangers. I get these messages saying, I bought your book and I started reading it, and now I'm seeing rainbows everywhere in the most incredible ways and timing and everything. And it's not just rainbows in the sky. It's like what you're seeing. It's rainbow reflections. It's rainbows on clothing. It's this, it's that. And it's because we're tapping into that frequency of remembering. So we're bringing in that star frequency, that cosmic remembering. We're awakening the cosmic wisdom within ourselves, but then we're also awakening the magic and consciousness all around us on this earth plane, and we start to interact with it differently. So yes, it transforms us and it brings so much magic into our lives, but it ripples out. And I love that. I love that you're now sharing that with clients, and especially clients that wouldn't normally be into this stuff. And this happened to me even before I moved to Peru. I kind of hit a point in my corporate career where I just thought, I'm not going to be two different people anymore. I'm not going to pretend to be one way in the corporate space and then another way in my true self. And I just started showing up at work, and I was sharing with people my experiences around Cambo and my experiences in Peru, and I was talking to them about my sound healing and everything. And it was like I had a constant line at my desk of people wanting to come and talk about things, because what I realized was, even in the corporate space where you think these people aren't open to that, everybody has that stirring of remembering within themselves, but most people don't have access to the exploration of it. So when someone starts to share this, they might be a little bit skeptical at first, but then they like something overrides it. Something within them is like, nah, but wait, I want to explore this, and it's a beautiful thing. It's incredible. And it can ripple out in the most amazing, amazing ways. I know one of the biggest parts of Peru, I mean, I know it was all big, but one of the biggest parts of Peru for you was sitting with San Pedro, the plant medicine. So for the listeners who don't know that, he is known locally as Wachuma. He is the grandfather consciousness. So this is an actual plant teacher. He is consciousness. He is so beautiful. He's known as a heart medicine, an incredible, incredible wisdom keeper, guide, teacher. And we sat in a very sacred way. The Wachumera that we sit with here, her name is Leslie Myberg, and I've actually done an episode with her. So for anyone interested in hearing from her, go back through season 2. It's called How to Work with Plant Medicines, but she's phenomenal. She's so deeply embodied. She's been serving the medicine for and holding really beautiful ceremonies for over 25 years now. We were on sacred land. We were right opposite the Temple of the Moon. So it was just phenomenal. But can you share a little bit about, that was your first time, right? Sitting with plant medicine.
Yeah, and I want to kind of give people context when it comes to like medicine or drugs, anything. I've never in my life smoked weed, marijuana, never. Only thing I ever did was drink. So I was such a control. I was trying to control everything, right? Because of fear, or just I saw so many bad things happen to people I love that would smoke or who would do drugs, right? So for me, this was a big step. This was a big leap. This wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm about to sit with like some plant medicine and get a download and my life is going to change. This is like, I've never in my life sat with any medicine, like I'm not doing that. I'm disciplined. So with that being said, I sat with the medicine. The first time sitting with the medicine, you don't know what to expect, right? Because you've never done it. You don't have the experience. You just don't know. So I knew like maybe 25, 30 minutes in, I started feeling like, and Leslie would say this, she said, you're going to feel woozy. You're going to feel a little But because I've never experienced, I'm like, am I drunk? Am I high? Like, what is going on? And honestly, I was afraid to get up because I thought I would fall. I'm like, damn, I'm so weak. And then there's moments I'm super happy, and then I'm crying and I'm sad. So there was like a area within the sacred site where we were holding the medicine, sitting with the medicine. And I just went back there, and I remembered, like, I got flashbacks to my third eye now, and I could see it. And I just laid down, and I took a deep breath, and then like the grandfather was just talking to me. It's like, no more giving. You got to learn how to receive. In order to be the king, you have to receive, and you got to ask for help. I'm like, what? Like, ask for help? How do I ask for help? You just ask. And then I started getting more messages like, by the way, those messages you're getting, you can't write them. You got to ask someone. I just started crying more, like, what? And I didn't know it was so hard for me to ask someone to do something as small and simple as, can you write this down for me? So I was fighting. To be honest, I was fighting. I was laying there, and I got the urge to just get up, and I was looking for Sia, and I was looking for you. And as soon as I saw Sia, I just broke down in tears. I was like, huh? Can you, you know? And she's like, are you okay? It's like, okay, sit here. And I promise you, Sia, you wrote probably like 8 messages, and it's like something left me. Like, it's like I kind of like relaxed, and all I remember you hearing was like, yeah, yeah, that's the softening. That's the divine feminine. Didn't I tell you that? It was like I was in a movie. Like my master's like, yeah. It's good, isn't it? It's okay. Do you need anything else? Okay, you continue the journey. And I was like, wow, I'm receiving. Damn, it feels great to receive. But it was so beautiful because in that moment, I was like, I see why people do this. I get it. And then I started getting like different visions, like, hold on. See, we got to bring this to the States. Where's the camera? We got to bring TV in because people need to see this. But I said, more important, people need to see me like this because I appear to be so strong and so confident. And no, they need to see me weak and vulnerable like this, where I can't hold on to my toxic masculine no more. I got to soften. I got to receive. And the medicine is, I became the medicine. Like the second time around, oh, message was coming like this. Boom, boom, boom. I'm like, come on, grandfather, let's go. And I got to a point like, I want to cry more. Like, come on, tears, come on. And then, I was getting, downloads about the black race and then miracle seeds. I mean, it's so much I could share, but and more importantly, the medicine changed my life. It opened up my heart, and the message I got, at least for me and men, I think, we have to be broken to become whole again. And broken doesn't mean like shattered and someone, but you got to be vulnerable. Like you got to let that side come to the light, and it's okay. And that's how you soften and you bring the two together, and you can create that divine union within self. And then, you can create it with a partner or a person that you love, but that person and partner needs to happen in you. And so I was broken. Grandfather broke me to become whole, and it felt good. And I released, and I was like, okay, here we are.
Oh my gosh, even just hearing you talk about it, my heart is beaming. My face is smiling so much that my cheeks are hurting. This to me is healing masculinity. This is what it
Yeah.
means to heal masculinity. And I also, as you're talking about this, so there's a couple of like dots that I want to join. So when what we didn't realize when we were seeing the hummingbird in Joshua Tree is the hummingbird is the guardian of San Pedro. And you realized during the medicine, you were like, Sia, the hummingbird in Joshua Tree, it was San Pedro calling me. And you were just saying to me as we started today that you had a hummingbird come up to your window where you are in LA, and you're like, I've lived here for ages. I've never had one come up to the window like that. So the medicine is staying with you. Grandfather is staying with you. And I love that. And I love that differentiation as well, because I remember I'm also someone who's never taken drugs in my life. I've never even tried weed. I never really drank either. I drank a couple of times when I was maybe like 18, 19, early 20s, because obviously the drinking age is younger in Australia. But it was never because I wanted to. I hated the frequency of it. I could feel how low frequency it was. It was because my friends were pushing me. And then I hit a point in my 20s where I'm just like, guys, I'm not going to do what I don't want to do anymore. So it got to the point where my friends were totally accepting of the fact that I didn't drink. I was never going to take drugs or anything like that. So the first time that I heard about plant medicine, I thought it was a drug. I came from a Western mindset and I was like, there's no way I'm taking drugs and everything. And it took me a couple of years actually to understand that this is nothing to do with drugs. This is consciousness. This is sacred. These are like, and obviously now people like us, we know that for anything that we want to heal, the cure is in nature. We don't need and I mean, okay, there might be occasional things where we do need medical or pharmaceutical intervention, either because the natural remedy has been pushed into extinction or we don't have access to it. But you heard Leslie talk about she's seen so many people cure cancer with San Pedro. I cured my asthma, lifelong asthma. I had been through breathing rehabilitation multiple times. They did x-rays of my lungs and the outer 30% of both of my lungs were not functional. I was on 2 puffers, a steroid and an inhaler 4 times a day. And then I arrived in Peru, sat with grandfather twice, and I've never touched a puffer since, and I've never had problems with needing breathing rehabilitation or anything. So, this is phenomenal and it's so different to anything we've experienced. But what I loved about your journey is when I saw you soften, it was the most beautiful thing. It was the most beautiful thing. And it reminds me of when we were in Joshua Tree and when you sat with cacao and obviously, for the listeners, yes, you had actually technically sat with plant medicine before because cacao is a plant medicine. But when we say it was your first time, we're talking about one of those bigger journeys like you have with San Pedro. And when you sat with the cacao, you had a bit of a softening there and you had to open into trust. And then building on that trust was where San Pedro took you, where he showed you it's safe to feel vulnerable. It's safe to let in your divine feminine and not have to be so guarded, where the masculine becomes distorted into the toxic masculine. And we spoke, at Joshua Tree, and I said to you, because I've had Black boyfriends before, and there's an energy that can sometimes come through because of the ancestral trauma and because of everything that's happened, that there's this really hard edge. There's this just kind of like fight energy that can actually come through as quite a distorted masculine energy. And we spoke about that in Joshua Tree. And it was incredible to see you in Wachuma healing that. And then you got so much information about the Black race and what people need to do to be able to heal. And I really hope, I know you told me at that time that you're planning to write a book about it. So I hope you do that, because that would be phenomenal, but just seeing, ancestral things aside, just seeing from your own experience of how knowing, for the listeners, maybe they're hearing you for the first time. Eric grew up in the hood. He grew up in a neighborhood where there was lots of drugs. People in his family were involved in drugs, people getting shot on the street. It was hardcore. And you came out of that and you chose that you wanted to be a different way, but you've always had to fight, and you've always had to be, be, as you said, really disciplined. And there hasn't been that feeling of safety in the softness. And you have been, because you want to create the change in the world and because you're dedicated in being a thought leader, your focus has been on giving, but you weren't able to receive. So to see that balance of that beautiful divine feminine come in, that was incredible to witness.
Yeah, I think to take people on a journey that we spoke earlier. So Joshua Tree, I got my crown. So when I got to Peru, like I said, the first 2 days was Inca Trail, then Machu Picchu, then we set with the medicine, if I'm saying it right. While I was in the medicine, the grandfather was saying the hiking was your king activation before you could come see me. It's part of the pilgrimage. I couldn't just come sit with the medicine. I had to go on a journey of hiking the mountains and going through high or lows, whatever. And I realized, like, wow, sometimes in life, or most times in life, you got to go through a journey to get where you want to go. And sometimes being in the West, we just want it right away. So even if we get something right away, we can't even appreciate the value that it has because we haven't earned it. The thing with the medicine, what you do with these retreats, you earn your keep, you earn the messages, you earn the download because you're not just sitting with the medicine every other day. You're hiking, you're learning, and setting intentions to the land and giving offerings. And then I realized the grandfather is someone I've been looking for my entire life in a man. I've been looking for that mentor. Like who can I look up to? Who can I trust? And now that I have those two, experiences in Josh retreat, because you was one who initiated the trust, and then Hummingbird came, and then we got the Peru, and then I accepted the trust through the medicine. Now it's just the remembrance of just standing in that with full faith and confidence. And I think being in this other timeline that I was in, it distorted everything, especially my love. Like I have so much love for people in life that there were moments here. I don't know if I ever told you this, that people would judge, like, why you always give? Why you always like this? Like, you're too happy, you're too positive. And I think when we were sitting with the medicine, I started crying when we was talking to the group, like joy and happiness really saved me from my pain. Like, because that what kept me going. But now it's like I'm fully engulfed in just sharing and being in love and not hiding from it. And like you said, being vulnerable. So the medicine works. Peru is sacred. The people do everything with love. I'm just so thankful to have that experience, and I'm always have it in my mind. And I just want to give back when I can, and do something there for the people, and you know, just continue the journey in a different way. Because, like you said, I became the medicine, and it's a real thing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And again, I'm just so reminded by me earlier on in my journey because I see so much of that in your experience. And that's why I wanted to share this because when we follow that call, that remembering, and I remember when your first day when you arrived here in Cusco, or maybe it was your second day, and you just said, Sia, I feel like I'm home. This feels like home to me. I know this place. And I have felt that so many times where places have called me and I've gone and I've just had these spontaneous tears of, I'm back, and it's just the land is embracing me. And it was actually and I've shared this before, it was actually an Aboriginal uncle who first taught me about the reverence with the land and how we introduce ourselves to the land and ask the permissions and everything, which is what you were talking about that I do with opening up the portal and
Yeah.
and the way that we approached Joshua Tree and everything. And then once I came and lived in Peru, that way of living just went to a whole other deeper level of embodiment and understanding. And so I'm so glad that you've shared your experience because what I want people to know is that to get that massive leap in consciousness, to make that huge timeline shift and really come back to the truth of who we are, sometimes, yes, I mean, sometimes we can get it just from reading the books and from doing the online programs. And even if we can't get it fully from that, we will get a massive shift from that. But there's something else to be gained from when we leave everything that we know and everything that's familiar and we go somewhere else and we have a deep experience and we connect deeply with the land and we receive from the land. And as you've said, the medicines that you receive on a journey like that, whether it be a plant medicine, whether it be the medicine of the mountains, whether it be the medicine of the condors or the hummingbirds or whatever it might be, they walk with you after that. They become your team, your earth-based team, your allies, your guardians. And I actually have a medicine pouch that was gifted to me from the father of my goddaughter, and I have inside it so many different crystals or rocks or shells or whatever from very special places to me because these lands want to be with me. And obviously, I have always asked permission, before taking anything from anywhere. And quite a few of those things have actually been offered to me from someone Indigenous of those lands saying, this land wants to walk with you. And when I'm struggling, I had a challenging week this last week. I literally got out all of my team from my medicine pouch. I laid them all out and I connected and communicated and talked to each and every one of them. And I cried, I cried because I felt their love. I felt how much they were supporting me. And I was asking, what do I need to do to anchor in this next highest timeline that I'm grounding in? And the answer was, ask the lands for help, because the lands are going to help you to anchor it. So this is sacred co-creation. This is sacred co-creation in motion. And there's a line in the new book where I'm probably not going to get it exactly right, but it says, you are abundance. You are abundance in motion because you are the living, breathing embodiment of sacred co-creation. And everything that we've spoken about is exactly that. And I'm so grateful to you for sharing this, and just looking at your face, looking at your body, like your smile, your eyes. You are different now. I can see it. You are different. And in the most, you were incredible before, but you're more you now. Yeah, you know what I mean? And you're more whole. And I can feel that beautiful, like, yes, now the masculine feels like divine masculine, and then you've got the divine feminine, and you just feel so embodied, and it's beautiful to witness. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is what, I would at least say, Black men, this is what we fight against, that we don't know, is that we can't be our true self. Like, I've always been spiritual. I've always been a different thinker and, felt things that I didn't know about. And I just hid it from myself and others because it didn't make sense for the environment. And one of the messages I want to share with the audience, I don't know if you have any people from, African American descent, Black or minorities or whatever, is bigger than color. But Black race is the human race, and it's not about color. It's about energy. And the message the grandfather gave me is that when Black people stop fighting, we'll stop dying. And dying doesn't mean like literally, but like emotionally, mentally, spiritually, energetically. Like, we don't have to fight. We can just let go and trust and become the power that we are, the love that we are, and be loved. We don't have to experience and express our pain. But if we don't have the information, we don't have the activations, we don't have things like this medicine, then it's hard to kind of like be present with the love that we have.
Yeah.
And I just realized, like, as even men, we don't hug, man. We don't hug. Like, we don't hug each other. Like, what's wrong with a hug? So I just think the medicine, Peru, the mountains, it's so simple, but it's everything. It's like Earth. It's like the universe. It's so simple, but it's everything, and all is everything, and all of us is one. And I feel like Peru brought me back to my oneness. Like, I can be however I am, just like this. I don't have to look or be. I can just be present and say, this is how I feel. I feel happy. I feel whole. I feel fulfilled because I did something for my soul and not for my flesh, and my life changed. And I'm on a new timeline. Thanks to Peru and the retreat and, Sia and everything you provided, and Leslie and just everybody, the group. You guys held so much sacred space for someone like me just to receive the peace and harmony of the land without no questioning.
And you were the one that stepped into it. I always say to people, we can create the space and we can create the invitation, but it's up to the person to step into it. So, again, I look back at, as you said, it was March. I invited you. The retreat was in May. Most people had been booked into that retreat for at least 4 or 5 months. And you said yes. You took the opportunity. You invested in yourself. You had to buy air tickets. You had to take time off work. You showed up for yourself, and other people can only create the space. But when it comes down to it, it's how we show up for ourselves and the gifts are just absolutely infinite. So, oh, Eric, I know we could keep talking for hours, but we will wrap it up there. So I just want to say to the listeners, people can find you on Instagram at Eric Bigger, and your podcast. Yeah, I'm just so excited to see what you now birth forward and share in the world in this new higher timeline. It's really exciting.